Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Definition, and if you're still in the dark over, well, dark, then this is the video for you. The third and final season has just wrapped up, and there's a lot to unpack from it. The timey-wimey wibbly-wobbly series feels like you need a PhD in theoretical physics to understand, but we've hopefully created a breakdown that's going to be dark for dummies and should guide you through this series as simply as possible. Now obviously there will be heavy spoilers here, so if you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, then I highly recommend that you turn off now. Make sure you drop a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. With that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into our breakdown of Dark. Okay, so Dark as a whole has very much been about ensuing one's survival no matter what. This has been shown through several of the characters who've pretty much all had to do something bad in order to guarantee the way things happen are always the way things happen. Adam is a key character that signifies this, and in order to make sure that Jonas would go on to become him, he killed Martha just before the apocalypse at the end of season 2. In his eyes, this would set things in motion that would continue the loop in which Jonas would become him, and thus the status quo would remain. However, Dark threw a curveball in the final few moments of season 2, and we were introduced to an alternate version of Martha that saved him from the apocalypse. The third entry is very much about breaking this loop, and it culminates with Claudia convincing Adam to do so by the actions we've seen her carry out throughout the show. Predominantly, the three travellers we need to be aware of are Jonas, Martha and Claudia, as they're pretty much who the show revolves around. Now, my notes for this look like the walls of a psychiatric ward, but I'll try and keep things as simple as possible, so I will be glossing over certain elements and moments, just so we aren't looking at an 8-hour long video. Initially, it seems like there's two worlds with all the timelines happening at once, which leads to a straight line in which all intertwine. This is actually proved to be wrong at the end of the show, but look, we'll get into it. Now, season 3 opens immediately after the head-scratching ending of season 2, and it begins with the burning of the family tree that's been at the centre of the time travel show. This signifies the message that all must end in order to save everyone, and it's a neat way to open the series, so we have a sort of subtext of what must be done. If you thought things couldn't get any more confusing, then prepare to be proven wrong, because the first half of the third entry feels like trying to put a jigsaw together blindfolded with your hands tied behind your back. The alternate version of Martha and Jonas journey through to a mirror world, which is exemplified by the title sequence being reversed. In this world, everything is sort of taking a similar course to the last two seasons we've seen, however, at the same time, everything has changed too. There's minor details that are very subtle, and we can see examples of this in the chair outside the cave switching sides. It also appears in other elements such as the house being reversed, and this World B forms a knot with World A, in which everything travels on a continuous loop. At the start of the season, Martha abandons Jonas in 2019 B so that he can learn about breaking the cycle. In World B, the apocalypse still happens on June 27th, 22. Wait, that's today. And we see that Martha and Jonas pretty much switch places as the traveller. This is the alternate timeline that Claudia was referring to as the world without Jonas. Also, Shining reference. Now, on the whole, a lot of the characters in the show exist because of something known as the bootstrap paradox. In this theoretical situation, a scientist finds a book on his doorstep. This book details all of the ins and outs of time travel and uses it to build a time machine. He then travels back in time to leave himself the book, and thus the loop can continue. This is how a lot of the characters in the show were created, and primarily most of them exist because someone in the future travelled back to the past to set things in motion. Thus, you remove one element such as Mikkel, and then Jonas can't be born and everything changes. Other notable differences we see early on in World B are that Ulrich is cheating on Hannah with Charlotte, and Woola doesn't have an arm instead of an eye, and Regina Tideman also died prematurely. In World A, we learn that older Jonas travelled back to the 1880s, and Martha goes to visit him in order to supposedly lead him on a different path. She tells older Jonas, who I'll be referring to as the stranger, so things don't get confusing, about younger Jonas from their world, informing her of this, which the former doesn't remember, and thus he believes that things may have been altered in the loop. However, we learn that this was actually done by Adam, who knew his past self would be too gullible to question anything. This was in exchange for Martha learning about the origin, aka her unborn child, and yeah, it's a lot of timey-wimey wibbly-wobbly stuff. But basically, at the core of everything, you have all of the characters trying to break the loop. Breaking the loop is something we've had lip service paid to in earlier seasons, and this is the key to everything. It was said that every time a loop happens, something minor changes, so if enough of these minor changes happen, then one thing could end up being the straw that breaks the camel's back, or rather ties everything together. I'll discuss how this fulfills in just a bit, but the binding of things is something you need to bear in mind. Now, it's during this time that we see the stranger slowly being persuaded into creating a paradise through Sigmundus. The final episode is called Paradise, and thus the idea that the stranger has to become Adam is planted here. I actually enjoyed seeing Sigmundus formed and their ideologies and also failures. They basically believe that time travel can save everything, but as we know from Rick and Morty, trying to use it just leads to society eating its own tail, and it's a path to damnation. This is reflected in Tannhaus, who tried to resurrect his family because he believed they would be alive in the Macroverse due to the theory of Schrodinger's cat. However, he ended up creating divisions from the origin world, which gives us an inkling of how things have happened for our protagonists. Now, it's great seeing this play out in motion, and I love watching how Martha sort of became the Adam of her own world as Eva, or as Jonas calls her, Auntie. They are the chosen ones from both their worlds, and the Adam and Eve picture we see in the season is split down the middle because of this. Now, we basically watch the two mirror one another as they try and navigate the complex landscapes of the loops and convince themselves to break it in order to return things to how they should be. A lot of the season also fills in the blanks and backstory elements that we've only heard about but not really been privy to. This involves Elizabeth and Noah, Charlotte meeting Elizabeth in the future, Hannah going to the past, the nuclear plant being built, Katrina trying to save Ulrich, Katrina getting killed by her own mother, the Mads murder investigation, Bartosz fathering Agnes, and a lot more. Now, one of the most notable elements to be aware of is that Martha and Jonas travel to 2052b. It's here that we learn that Jonas has to let go of Martha in his world in order to save it, and the reason that the apocalypse has happened so many times before is because he's refused to. Both Adam and Eva throughout their lives have been basically laying the groundwork in order to guarantee that things continue to be the way that they are because they believe that it will untie the knot when ultimately it just binds it tighter. Now, by the end, we actually learn that there are three worlds, and that A and B are the ones that should have never existed. The origin world is actually the paradise and combination of these two worlds, and it's the way that things should be. Dark has primarily moved emotions of three, with the symbol of the triquetra being something that ties everything together. Just as we primarily got timeline jumps of 33 years, we also have three worlds and so on and so forth. In numerology, 3 is a number that means divinity, and this is referenced in the Trinity of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit in Christianity. In Christianity, the number 333 is in fact seen as an opposite to 666, and if you see it, it means you have been visited by guardian angels that will look after you. Eva also tells Jonas that humans live 3 lives, and the idea of 3 is laced throughout the season. Now, though the worlds in Dark are shaped by dualities such as black and white, light and dark, it is far more complex, and this third world is sort of the best of both worlds, if you will, that sort of brings what should have been together. Thus, everything isn't about time, it's more about realities and making the best one possible. Now, at a crazy moment in the season, an alternate version of Martha shows up and kills Jonas, hammering home this idea of there being other options for what we've been told, and this of course mirrors how Martha was shot at the end of season 2. These switch points alternate certain passages in action, but they always eventually end up coming back as part of the same path, with the realities overlapping and causing one another. However, it is possible to break them. Though everything is put on this predetermined path, it doesn't mean that you have to travel it. This kind of sets up everything for the finale, and we watch as Claudia visits Adam, who's shocked that she's alive. She reveals that though he's been trying to untie the knot through killing Martha, and therefore the origin, that he's actually been ensuring that this causality loop continues. She tells him that he must enforce the way that things are in the past, and make sure that it all happens exactly the same up until this one moment that we see happening on the screen. It turns out that Claudia has actually been trying to save Regina this entire time by erasing all worlds in which she dies. She's kept everyone in the dark, lying to both Adam and Eva throughout their lives, so things inevitably lead to this conversation. This ties to the theme of motherly instinct, and just in how Claudia has been trying to save a child, Eva has been trying to save hers, who we learn is the new man that's been introduced in the series, as well as his younger and older self. Claudia says that they have to prevent the invention of time travel by Tannhaus, which will mean both worlds will no longer exist. The gateway to this opens when the time machine first turns on, as it creates a moment in which time stands still, and thus they can break the chain as the chain does not exist. Claudia says she's already used a moment to change things in the past, and Adam possesses the ability to do so too. However, in order for this to happen, things must always happen the way that they have up until a certain point, which is why Martha killed Jonas in the scene from earlier. Now, with things slightly altered, Adam is able to visit Jonas at the moment of the apocalypse, and together they travel to World B. Here he tells them that everything that has happened in World A and B has been caused because of their stubbornness, but he's finally ready to change things. Adam sends Jonas to stop Martha from coming into contact with Magnus and Franziska, and thus she will not become Eva and he will not become Adam. He manages to pull it off, and together they travel with one another in order to bring Tannhaus's family back so that he never goes on to build a time machine. Elsewhere, Adam burns the picture of Adam and Eva, signifying the end of their loops. Jonas tells Martha that they must sacrifice their lives to make sure that all the sorrow they eventually go on to cause never happens. They are the glitch in the Matrix that leads to their worlds becoming hell on earth, and in order to get the paradise they wish for, they need to make sure they don't travel down the routes we've seen across the series. Adam visits Eva as he has always done, but where he would normally kill her, he's removed the bullets in the gun and shows that things can change. It's actually a really touching moment between the two, as he tells them that everything they've done will be forgotten, as both will be wiped out. They actually share a hug, and yeah, it's amazing seeing things change. Their love and hate is what caused so much pain, and they're finally at peace after realizing they can't escape the labyrinth that they've created for themselves. In the tunnel, Martha and Jonas reach the doorway in the cave, and when Tannhaus switches on the machine, they're transported to an abyss without time, in which they can see each other's realities. This is the moment in which everything is fractured, and thus they use it to travel to the origin world. Here we witness Marek, Tannhaus's son, who has a blazing row with his father before driving away into a storm with Sonia and their child. Jonas and Martha materialize and stop him from travelling to the bridge, which is where the family ended up being in an accident that cost them their lives. They convince him to stop through showing that they know him, and thus save his life. So Tannhaus never needs to create the time machine, and thus the fractures will never exist. Marek returns to his father and says that he believes the pair were angels, and this ties back to the number 333 that we mentioned earlier. Now, with the worlds no longer being created, neither Jonas or Martha can exist as how they were, and they slowly start to disappear, with Jonas stating, "You and I are perfect for each other, never believe anything else." They hold hands as they disintegrate, which mirrors the other travellers vanishing too. Finally, they have broken the loop, and it's a bittersweet moment in which we see them no longer experiencing the hells that they've been trapped in. Every character had been trying to ensure their survival all this time in order to carry on the loop. However, they realised that they had to break it in order to make it so that everyone else had a better life, and it's a really sentimental moment that speaks to the notion of sacrifice. Their worlds and lives will have just been a dream, and we cut to the characters, namely Hannah and Regina, living in the original world, the paradise in which there was no apocalypse. We see Hannah, Woola, Benny, Peter and Regina having a dinner party, and Woola's eye isn't as bad, Hannah is pregnant, and everyone seems a lot happier. Hannah has a sudden moment where she stares at a raincoat, and I believe this deja vu is her remembering for just a brief moment their other lives in the mirror worlds. She says that they are free of everything and no longer tied to the predetermined paths that have had them existing with one another on an almost permanent loop for eternity. She says Hannah felt good being free of it, so we do know that the characters we saw perish did get a happy ending. They stopped the world from destroying itself, and now they all have a future that won't involve the past, and so on. The season ends with the group asking Hannah if she's thought of any names, and she stares at a yellow raincoat and says Jonas before the screen cuts to black. Now what this means is that the Jonas we knew will still live on in some form or another, as will most of the characters that we've grown to know and love. However, their dark nightmare versions such as Adam will just be a dream, and the characters will instead get happy lives instead of the torture that they've endured for over several lifetimes. Things have changed, but they've changed for the better, and all of the events that would lead to the murder of children, the death of millions and more have been taken out of the future because of Jonas and Martha's sacrifice. They finally broke the chain so that the world could continue without the versions of themselves that we've witnessed, and the lights going off and on in the house symbolise that they've taken us out of the dark and into the light. It ends the season, and series as a whole, leaving Dark as one of the best sci-fi shows ever made. So that concludes our breakdown, and obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, and if there's any alternate theories or things that you feel like talking about. Make sure you comment below and let us know, and if you enjoyed this video then please drop a thumbs up, and make sure you check out our breakdown of Man of Steel, which is going to be linked at the end. We go over all the insane details in it, so it's definitely worth checking out if you want to know more. Also, shout out to Beyond Gaming for watching the series with me, as it's massively helped having someone to talk to about just how insane this is. Now if you want to support the channel from as little as 99 cents a month, then please click the join button below. We massively appreciate it, and as a thank you, you get access to content early. If you want to come chat to us after the show, either follow us at Heavy Spoilers or click the Discord link in the description below. With all that out of the way, thank you for sticking until the end. I've been Definition, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.